So I don't
John, I
know.
understand. The other question about him was size, and you've already brought that up here today. You don't know that he can be a middle linebacker in the league because he's only 5'11" and he's only 228 pounds, whatever his weight is. I'll look at the player. I'm not going to get caught up in size and an inch and a half and 14 pounds. That's what the prototypic average linebacker is in the NFL. I think this kid's got skills that negate the undersized aspect of his body. And who's to say? I don't think he's going to be growing much at age 21. But who's to say he can't put on 10 more pounds of muscle now that he's in the National Football League?
Well,
Here we are, the Mac and Mac guys on Birds 365. John McMullen and Jody McDonald. J Mac, you ready for a weekend? Is this going to actually be an Eagle weekend? Are they actually going to do some practicing or at least some drills?
Yeah, who knows? It's going to rain, Jody. that could affect everything. They're going to run around. They're going to run around in t-shirts and shorts.
Nice.
Might be in the bubble, but they're going to do some running around. The rookies are.
Right. So let's start right there. They've got a handful of rookies, not enough to play an 11-11 football game. But,
yeah, well, you can't do football drills anyway, so that fixes that out.
So what exactly do they do?
A lot of conditioning, a lot of drills, a lot of individual, working with the position coaches. So you'll see the quarterbacks throw the football a little bit,
But wouldn't that be considered a football drill?
Well, I meant team drills. I should be specific, 11 on 11, you were saying. And you don't, but
they don't have enough guys to do 11 on 11, even if it was allowable.
But yeah, even if they did, it wouldn't be allowable. So that helps with rookie camp, at least when you have those numbers. But, the undrafted guys, there'll be some tryout players there. Penn State kid is coming in, power forward on the basketball team to try out as a tight end. And it's a kickoff to every football season. Used to be 3 days. Now it's 2 days. That's everything is
like everything else.
Like everything else is scaled back and less work. But I do talk about the off season all the time. Look, I've been on this camp for years and years and years. It's not important for the veteran players. There's a lot of hand wringing across the country when somebody doesn't show up for voluntary work or what have you. And, people say, you got to be in. As long as you keep yourself in shape as a veteran player, that's all they're worried about. It's not really impactful for them. I do think it is impactful for the young players, though. Just, to get geared up in the system, to get the terminology, to start understanding. And by the way, from a human perspective, just to get comfortable. It's a new job, and most of these kids are moving from different places into Philadelphia just to get some normalcy and to get some. Everybody can identify with that. Everybody's had a new job, and the anxiety it creates, and sometimes you got to move for a job, and you don't know the city or the place you're going, and it's uncomfortable. So that's one of those things that not a lot of people think about. It's very, very real. And then, you're talking basically very young kids as well, have to do this. So I do think it is important, the off-season program for rookie players. I always have.
It's funny that you say people don't think about it. Excuse me, because I was thinking about it just yesterday. Did the Eagles help these young men? I want to call them kids because they're kids compared to you and I, but they're professionals and they're going to be out there playing in the National Football League next year if they're good enough to make it. But you're right; they're 20-something-year-old kids coming in from, in some places, the other side of the country. They don't know the city of Philadelphia. They've lived in dorms or their parents' house, chances are, up until this point. Now they have to find, quote unquote, housing for themselves. do the Eagles help out with that? Do they have
Oh
somebody
yeah.
who
Oh
works
yeah.
with them and helps them find a rental or a hotel or whatever? How do most of these kids do find living over this summer leading up to the season when they find out if they did or didn't make the Philadelphia Eagles or their practice squad?
Well, they do have, again, it's yeah, they help. That's the short answer. But and obviously they do have a team hotel that shall remain nameless. But it's different stages. Obviously, veteran players are, if you're making a lot of money, if you're Hassan Reddick, and Hassan's from the area anyway, you don't need as much help. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of players like the undrafted guys coming in. They're not looking for places yet. They're just going
Mm-hmm.
to stay at the team hotel, and they get shuttled back and forth to the NovaCare complex every day. But there are some complexes the Eagles steer young players toward. One is very close to the NovaCare complex, so yeah, they help out, and they realize, and every team realizes that's one of those things you have to do because, yeah, I mean, you can imagine if you're coming from Texas and hey, you're plopped down in South Philadelphia now, go find a place to live at 22. You're not going to know what to do. So yeah, that's a very important part of the process.
All right, so a bunch of drills that the young guys will be going through over the next couple of days, and I think the point you made was dead on. That do I actually think someone will become a better football player because of these next 2 days? Probably not. Maybe somebody picks up on something, but that's not the main reason that they have this 2 day get together. It's to kind of indoctrinate yourself into the Philadelphia Eagles and your teammates. That you don't know any of the teammates. You don't know anybody when you come in. Maybe you get lucky. There's one guy you played against
Jordan Davis,
somewhere.
Nakobe Dean, they know each other. That does, by the way, that makes it a lot more comfortable if you go to a place with one of your college teammates or somebody you're very, very close to. So yeah, I wouldn't downplay that. That's very important. Well, it's cool to have somebody going through the same thing as you, um, as opposed to somebody who's just what I just mentioned is
Yep.
just plopping in, doesn't know anybody. So yeah, that's helpful as well. Um, and it worked last year for the Eagles. I think the more important part is the talent, Alabama, Georgia, but it helps to have that comfort level with somebody.
SEC guys coming to town, not usually a bad thing, a good thing. And this year it's Georgia guys. Last year it was Alabama guys. Let me ask you about Nakobe Dean because we know he was drafted in the third round. Shoot, I said right here on Birds 365 way back when. Way back when? What was it, about a month ago? When the Eagles had all three of their draft picks before they did the deal with the Saints, that I wanted to see them use one of them on Nakobe Dean. I thought he was that good a player that, all right, you fill your couple of needs. You're still at 19. You can break that all the way back to Jerry Robinson's scheme of never picking a linebacker in the first round, which, oh, by the way, you had another year because Nakobe Dean was not picked in the first round. He was not picked in the
Yeah,
second round.
yeah.
He was picked in the third round. Now I'm projecting and predicting he goes out and plays like a first rounder. He's far and away going to be the most productive Philadelphia Eagle rookie in his first year, is he not?
I guess that depends on definition. I mean, yeah, it's kind of like
I'd
Georgia.
start with number of snaps played.
No, I don't. Well, as we always do, we have to put on the caveat of injuries. But I don't think he's going to come in and start right away.
You don't.
I don't. What one for potentially for health reasons. Plus, the Eagles have pretty good linebackers for the first time in the history of the world. I think. Not obviously, we talked about Jerry Robinson. I'm exaggerating. He was a Pro Bowl player, but it's been a while since they've had great linebackers. Bill Berge, Seth Joyner, the most obvious ones. But recent history, they haven't done a lot at that particular position. And if they didn't draft Nakobe Dean, let's say, they drafted Cam Jurgens and he won 52 because the Eagles wanted both. They were right there. They were juggling between both. And he wasn't here. I would still say the Eagles are better at linebacker than they have been over the past 5-6 years. TJ Edwards is a player I like personally. probably a little bit more than most people. And then Kaiser White, I think, is sort of the modern NFL linebacker. Was a safety rover type player in college at West Virginia. Very athletic, very fast, very coverage oriented, and I would have been fine with that. Um, and I do think there's going to be. I don't know if there's going to be a red shirt, but I brought this up when the Eagles drafted Nakobe, and how said he's going to be out there. He's going to be out there, and that means today. And I do expect him to be out there. But he left that open. We'll do a double check. He left that open as far as the medical stuff. And again, I've said pretty consistently, I don't care about the pec. I don't care if he has surgery. If he comes in, that recheck says, yeah, you probably should have surgery, and he's out for 6 or 8 months. I don't even care. It's not an injury that's going to affect him long term, but it is going to affect his ability to play early this season. So you put that on top of that potential, on top of the fact that he's got to beat out Kaiser White. And he might, but I don't think he will early in his career. Now, if we're talking 2023, yeah, I think he's going to be on the field, and I'm fine with that. I'm
think
fine
he's
with
going
that.
to? You think he's going to not be competing with Edwards? I like Edwards, and Edwards had a really good year. Shoot, I was the guy here on Birds 365 who 2 weeks before they gave him the extension said, shouldn't they be talking about an extension? Doesn't he fit the Howie Roseman mode of when to extend a guy with what kind of production you're getting? So I kind of feel bad that TJ Edwards could get squeezed out, but that's the guy whose spot on the field he's going to be taking, is it not?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, one of the things with Nakobe, one of the reasons why I didn't think he'd go in the first round, even if he's healthy, his size, and 5'11", 225-pound middle linebacker. That's kind of small. You got to have somebody defending the run. I always say, it's May, Jody. I always say we're in May, so I got to change it. Nobody cares about the running game yet. And they won't for a while, but you need somebody out there to run support. We could talk about this Eagles team. Kaiser White, Hassan Reddick, all these undersized pieces, which are very athletic, and that part of it's great. But again, December football, outdoors, bad weather, which doesn't happen very often. I don't want to overstate it, but you got to have somebody. Now, Jordan Davis is going to be a big part of that as well, obviously, right smack dab in the middle. He's going to be the biggest part of it, the potential improvement. But he strikes me as a will linebacker, and that's Kaiser White's role. But we'll see.
He smacks me as a middle linebacker. And yes, is he slightly undersized for quote unquote today's middle linebacker in the NFL? A little bit. An inch or two, 10 pounds. I really don't think that's that big a deal. And as far as his injuries go, this is now starting to officially annoy me. Did he not play the entire national championship game? Did he not play straight through the end of Georgia's season? Was he not on the field when they beat Alabama to win the championship? Was he hurt? Was he standing on the sidelines? I don't remember any of that. Did any of that go down, John?
Well, I mean, if you want to play devil's advocate, Jody, I mean, it's wonderful that you play through aches and pains, but that doesn't mean the aches and pains don't exist. I'd rather have a guy play through it.
Aches and pains as per who? Him or someone else?
Well, I mean, there are, and Howie Roseman admitted, look, teams were concerned about his medical. These are doctors. I'm not a doctor. I mean, these are doctors who are telling their organizations that, maybe, certainly you don't want to take him here. Maybe there could be some degenerative stuff. There could be some concern. Mike K brought somebody up yesterday, Miles Jack, who I don't know if you remember when Miles was coming out of UCLA, he had a lot of hype. Potential top 10 pick, one of the best players. A lot of people called him the best pure football player in the draft, like we called Kyle Hamilton this year. A lot of hype. And he ended up going early in the second round because of a degenerative knee condition. So, I mean, those things, and he's played a long time. I'm not saying it's a death sentence, but and Howie said, look, I mean, yes, when he was pressed, he said, yes, other teams thought there were issues. So are the Eagles right? Hopefully. Are the other teams wrong? Hopefully. But I think to ignore it is probably not a good.
Let me ask you a question there. Other teams thought there were issues. When the draft was over and done with and Nakobe Dean became a Philadelphia Eagle, did Howie pick up the phone and touch base with all other teams around the National Football League and go, hey, we just took Nakobe Dean. Why wouldn't you guys draft him earlier? How is he determining that other teams had these medical questions about him, or is he just speculating?
Well, he talks to teams all the time. I think he's got a good beat on what other teams thinking. He doesn't want to admit that that's an issue, that was an issue. But he did. I think that tells you something. He did leave it open-ended, and I told you the day after. I said, read the transcript, and he said, we'll do a recheck. He did leave the door slightly ajar. I don't look, Jody. I know you like the player, but I do think it's we'd be lying to the listeners if we said there weren't other teams that had medical questions about Nakobe Dean. And to say Howie Roseman, of all people, is speculating, I think is wrong. He knows what other teams think. He's not just, I mean, why would he say that if there wasn't concerns? And by the way, why would the kid drop into the third round if there wasn't concerns?
John, I'm not suggesting that other teams didn't have medical questions about him. I'm saying I don't know that Howie Roseman knew. I think he's trying to put two and two together and come up with four that they had him ranked. As you just said, Howie Roseman said one thing you can't debate is he said this for fact, not for maybe. They thought about taking him in the second round, in the 50s, rather than in the 80s. Either he's lying or you believe him, and I believe him on that one. So he ended up going in the 80s. So there has to be a reason for that. So Howie is, in my estimation, speculating that other teams had medical questions about him. So did the Eagles. At one point, when they got on the board in the third round, they said, all right, you put it on the scale. Questions versus value. When value out tips questions, then you pull the name on the player and you select them. So
well, and I think
I'm doubting he got a general manager on the phone 2 days after the draft and said, why the hell you didn't take Nakobe Dean? Oh, let me send you our medicals on him. I don't believe that happened.
And by the way, he also said that he thought people were going to start thinking about taking him. So that's one of the reasons they took him where they took him. Yeah, if you're going to ask me, Jody, which is the truth? The Eagles had 51. Cam Jurgens was 1A, and Nakobe Dean was 1B. Versus other teams had medical questions on Nakobe Dean. If you're going to ask me which one was Howie telling the truth on, I'm going to say the second one more than the first one. More than, we magically got, I'm surprised Grant Calcaterra wasn't 53 on the board and Kyron Johnson wasn't 52. Oh, we got everybody we wanted. That's something you always hear from NFL general managers. That's general manager speak. There were concerns, and there are other reporters who are, and especially in New York, because Joe Shane is the one who at least probably went a little bit farther than he should have. I mean, I don't know I can't make you believe it, but there were concerns by other teams. And all we can do at this point is hope the Eagles are correct and hope the other teams are wrong. But that happens all the time. Happened with DJ Metcalf. The Eagles were wrong. Seattle was correct. Seattle went with the direction. It happens all the time. But when you see players like that talent drop, it's nearly always medical related. We saw it last year with JOK in Cleveland. He's one of the best players in the draft. We're like, what the hell's going on? Why isn't this kid going? He ends up in the second round. By the way, he ends up as one of the best players in the draft, at least early in his career after his rookie season. This kind of stuff happens all the time, Jody.
I
I don't
John,
know.
I understand. The other question about him was size, and you've already brought that up here today. You don't know that he can be a middle linebacker in the league because he's only 5'11" and he's only 228 pounds, whatever his weight is. I look at the player. I'm not going to get caught up in size and an inch and a half and 14 pounds. That's what the prototypic average linebacker is in the NFL. I think this kid's got skills that negate the undersized aspect of his body. And who's to say? I don't think he's going to be growing much at age 21, but who's to say he can't put on 10 more pounds of muscle now that he's in the National Football League?
Well, I've compared him to a guy I used to cover named Ed McDaniel, who was 5'11", was a great linebacker for a long time. And people don't, it's not a name that people are going unless they remember Wahoo McDaniel. His name was also Ed. But I digress. But I'm not saying he can't be a great player. And actually, it's probably better for him to be a middle linebacker. Say that because I think ultimately he's got to be a 2-down player, which is a middle linebacker, not the coverage linebacker. That'd probably be better for him. But I think the Eagles are going to start him out on the weak side. That's my assumption. I could be completely wrong. They also have Davion Taylor, so that makes into it as well. I think if he gets on the field, and we got to get to Martin Frank, I'm getting too wordy. If he gets on the field, it will be for Kaiser White. I don't think it'll be for TJ Edwards, but hey, I like TJ Edwards, so maybe that's my bias.
I like TJ Edwards too, but I think the best position for Nakobe Dean, and I think he's going to be that good that he's going to command to be in his best position, is in the middle. John McMullen, Jody McDonald, Mac and Mac, guys. We will bring a third amigo into the mix. Martin Frank joins us next here on Birds 365.